again, I have a fascinating topic that we're going to discuss today. So get ready for this, buckle up. We're going to talk about how is this even possible? I never thought I'd be grateful for my husband's affair. What a statement. Can you imagine getting to a place where you're actually grateful for your husband's affair? Well, today I have a guest coming on. She's a former client, and we're going to talk about this topic. Can you be grateful for your husband's affair? So I'm Beth Miller. I am a marriage coach. I am the founder of the Marriage Saver program with Solify Wellness, and I help women save their marriages and get to a place of healing from the betrayal, ending those ruminating thoughts, getting to a place of better communication in a matter of 12 weeks. I support my clients every single day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, to really make these profound changes that are based in neuroscience and psychology. So let's hop right into it. I have Laura joining me. Laura, she's kept her camera off for now, just to protect her identity, and I'm so excited to have her here. She joined me about 6 months ago. She joined me 6 months ago, and at that point, she was about 3 months into her discovery. She's been married about 35 years. I think we just celebrated a 35th anniversary somewhere recently. She has 3 kids. She's an amazing mom. She's an amazing woman. You'll hear it in her voice in a few minutes. And her husband, Joe. We're going to talk about what happened between her husband, Joe, and the affair partner, who we are going to call the skank. And what I love about this is we can laugh about it a little bit, is I find my clients, they have these nicknames for the affair partner. And I've heard anything from calling her it to the home wrecker to horse face to F face to sometimes calling her by name as well. So we're going to talk about Laura's story with her husband Joe and the skank. So to get started, we're going to give a little background information. The skank, the affair partner, and her husband Joe had an emotional affair together. And the connection there is that the skank is a coworker. We don't want to call coworker, I guess more of a subcontractor with the company that they own together. So let's bring in Laura. When Laura first came to me at that 3 month into the discovery point, she had I would pinpoint it as 3 major things that were happening. The big thing was she wanted to forgive, but she was angry. She was angry that this was part of her story. She didn't want the affair to define her marriage, define her story. She also thought that if she were to forgive, that she'd be letting him off the hook. She also came to me wanting to know every detail. There was her heart that didn't quite want to know every detail, but then her brain's I need to logistically, I need to rationalize, I need to understand all the details. So this need to understand, be a detective. Number 3, a lot of consuming thoughts, flashbacks, images, just wanting to know why. Why did he do this? So that hamster wheel of all these questions of why. The other part was the trickle truths. Hers, lots of trickle truths. This disclosure that came in slowly, which was then re-traumatizing again, leading to angry and resentment. And then, of course, there was communication issues that were there before the affair. Her husband was extremely avoidant, closed off, and we'll get into maybe why he was so avoidant and closed off. So let's get into this. I'm going to bring in Laura. Laura, how are you today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I'm going to start off with a little bit of kind of how this all came to be. And we're not going to start right at the very beginning. We're going to kind of start right in the middle. When I guess number one, did you suspect that the affair was happening?
Not at all. I didn't have a clue in the world, totally blindsided.
Yeah, so then what I find really interesting here was you found out in a very unique way. You found out through what we originally called as night terrors. We called them night terrors, these kind of voices, flashes, things that were happening in your dreams. Can you tell us a little bit about how you first discovered the affair and what these night terrors were all about?
So I first discovered the affair, found texting. So I read through some text strings, put two and two together, realized it was more than just texting between he and a subcontractor. Did a little more digging, confronted him with what I found, phone records and texting. He denied, said it was nothing. It was just work related and nothing happened. And to frame it a little bit, in his mind, nothing did happen because there was no physical intimacy. So in his mind, cheating equaled physical. So, he would say, no, nothing happened. And then I would say less than a week later, I had a first night terror, and it was a dream that flashes and visions of details would come. Then I would confront him. he would first deny it, and then I'd be like, but just, this has to make sense. It's so strong. Different details. And then a truth would come out.
Let's stop there. What were some of these original flashes that you were having? Tell us a little bit more about one of these first dreams that you had.
So the first one was, it was kind of a gray, fuzzy image, and there was a lot of gravel, and a phone, and beer, and, trying to put it all together, and I was like, it doesn't make sense. Well, then, as I pushed and pushed and pushed, and he, was like, well, she's onto it. He did reveal, yep, he drove to a gravelly area, drinking while he was driving, and called her. So then it made total sense. It was the gravel in the parking lot. It was drinking. It was a phone call. So
Actually, just a second. So you're having these dreams with gravel and beer. How did you know that this was some sort of inkling that this had to do with details of the affair versus just a random dream that you're having? How did you know this? How did you feel this in your body?
it just felt so connected to the feelings, the angry feelings. And then these voices would come in. At first it was this very manic laughing and saying, there's more to the story, there's more to the story. We're telling you the truth, he's not. So that would repeat over and over and over.
So when this would happen, would you wake up right away or would you be able to kind of sleep through this and in the morning you'd remember it?
No, actually, he would wake me up and be like, what's going on? Because he said that my breathing would change and I would kind of mumble and talk in my sleep and kind of like jerk around. I don't remember that. So then he would wake me up. And then after having them several times, then he would try to just let me sleep through it because he was afraid of what it was revealing. Because every night terror revealed another detail.
How often were you having them?
2 or 3 times a week.
Okay, and that first one, when you first felt that anger, that connection, that kind of like this dream seems too close to what I think is actually happening. When you first approached Joe with that information, did he make you feel like your dreams were crazy, or did you catch him off guard where he's like, you caught me?
No, he did, he was like, oh, that's just, your mind playing tricks on you. Those are demons trying to, put a wedge between us. That's just you being angry and that's out. Your anger is coming out. And, he didn't want me to believe that there was anything behind it.
Okay, so he doesn't want you to think. So at what point, how far in, like, was it later that week when you're starting to have more of these night terrors that we called them at the time? When did he start to like, okay, he started to crack?
I would say it was probably 3 or 4 night terrors before when I would have one, then another truth would be revealed. He didn't just, once I started having these night terrors and these voices and these images, he didn't then dump everything. This went on for weeks and weeks, and that was one of my points is, how can you let me keep having these? Can't you please just tell me everything? I need the details to make sense, and once I can put them in a package, I can deal with this. But you're not giving it to me all at once. I need it.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
But he was, every one that I had, he knew there was another truth coming out, but he was afraid to just reveal it up front.
Were you ever feeling nervous going to bed, being like, oh, what's going to happen today? Or were you kind of excited to go to bed, being like, okay, I'm going to get more details tonight?
No, terrified. And, they would happen 2 or 3 times a week. And the other nights, I would do everything I could to stay awake because it was terrifying to have them. And then to go through the fallout of, you've lied to me. This is another truth. Why can't you just tell me the whole truth? Give me everything right now so I can deal with it instead of dealing with a little piece of it. and then I get another puzzle piece, and then I get another puzzle piece, and every time I got a puzzle piece, it was like reliving the whole thing over again.
So a lot of women, they have trouble sleeping. They can't get to sleep, or they wake up in the middle of the night, or they do have nightmares. So it sounds like maybe you're having a combination of all of that too, plus these vision dreams.
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
So if you have you ever tried to add them up? Like have you ever, okay, I had about this many night terrors or vision dreams. How many did you have? Did you ever calculate?
Um, I haven't, I never came up with a specific number, but I would say 15 of them. It had,
That's a lot. And then at any point during that, were you wondering, especially near the end, when you were you like, is there another one coming? Is there another one coming? Did you think, or you know what, actually, let me backtrack. Have you ever had this before with other incidents in your life? Like, have you ever felt yourself to be psychic or have these premonitions just with like while being awake? Or have you ever had these dreams that tell you things? Is this something that's happened before, or is this a first time ever?
I've always felt like energy around situations, but never had night terrors that revealed details like this.
When you say energy around situations, what do you mean by that?
Um, like you could feel a presence, like, trying to think of an example. Um, like after my grandma died and things would happen in, a day, whatever. You could feel her energy, say a situation that she would have really enjoyed doing. Going to pick apples. Doing that, you could feel her energy and like she was there with me, but I never heard her speak or anything like that, just that feeling. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. I've had friends who's lost their partners and they would see a deer, and just seeing that deer just had this deep connection to me, like that feels like my partner. Or seeing a little hummingbird outside the window that would keep visiting for a certain period of time, me like that feels like my mother. So I feel like that is a very common thing that people can relate to. During this time, was Joe having trouble sleeping? Or did you guys both wake up on kind of eggshells being like, okay, what's going to be talked about today? Oh no, he's never had a hard time sleeping. Well, alright. During this time, did you consider divorce? Absolutely. Right after Discovery was in November, and I envisioned myself at Christmas dinner announcing we were getting divorced. Wasn't sure where I wanted to go with it, wasn't sure. And I told him from the get-go, this is my decision. You've already made a decision now. I'm going to drive the train and I'm going to decide what to do. So absolutely thought about divorce. Had some very dark days that, contemplated suicide. And it's,
It was,
Thank
it
you for being okay
just,
with that.
yeah, it was, I've never felt hurt like that before. And it just felt easier to end it, to stop feeling the hurt. But then I got angry and said, how dare you put me in a situation to make me feel like that? So then my fighter came out. And that's when the night terrors started to get I've always said to him, you need to help me make sense of this. 2 plus 2 is not equaling 4. It has to. You have to help me make sense of this.
Yeah, and this anger that you found within you was new, like to a whole new level. It's almost like you found something within you that you didn't even know existed.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So
This anger's now come in, these reveals keep coming in, and this was November. We didn't meet until about March. And then even come March, you were still having you made it through Christmas. You didn't get
uh-huh.
divorced at Christmas. Come March, you're still having some of these dreams that eventually went from night terrors to what we now call vision dreams.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and at this point,
Truths is what we're calling them. We're still coming through. Tell me a little bit about some of the new dreams and what they were telling you. We had the original one of the gravel, the drinking. What were some of the new dreams showing you?
one of the last ones was, where he had stopped to buy them breakfast. And he said that, initially, right after Discovery, that nothing like that ever happened. And then I would have, visions of different details and aspects of where he bought it and, what he did and, the conversation and that stuff. So that was after or either just before or just after you and I met. Well, that was like 3 or 4 months after discovery. And that was yet another truth coming out that yes, we did have a date kind of a thing.
Yeah, you didn't know at this point, like what that emotional affair, you knew there's text messages that you'd found, but in terms of that meeting, and also I guess we could ask at any point, did you suspect that it was physical, that it was beyond just the emotional?
I didn't suspect that only because I couldn't put a timeline, like I couldn't connect any of the dots that when texting happened or when they were on a job site, that the opportunity for that was there. The culmination was a phone call inviting her to spend the night with him out of town.
And then that didn't happen.
It did not happen.
And why did it not happen?
It was about a 2-hour drive for her, and she said that she had family in town, so she wasn't able to leave.
And then you had, even before we started today, you'd mentioned that even more recently you've been thinking, did it go physical? One of his love languages is physical touch. There was some things that had been rocky in your marriage prior to the affair.
There is a few kind of life scares.
Things that had happened prior, plus communication wasn't strong. Physically, you weren't necessarily connecting as much. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
So absolutely prior to the affair, we can now call it was the perfect storm. We were very disconnected. We had been married for 34 years. We raised 3 kids, and comes with kids, your attention kind of goes elsewhere. We had started a business, so that was all consuming, and it just gradually became more disconnected. I said we were roommates, and we weren't very good roommates at that. He was demanding. I was snarky. I was trying to control and change him because I so badly wanted a happy marriage. And coincidentally enough, some days as I looked back through text, I would send him little memes about, happy marriage or connecting or something like that on the same day that he was texting this gang. So I was trying to shout from the rooftops. He was feeling like he was being controlled. So the more that happened, it was just such a vicious cycle. And it wasn't happy. And I think people around us may have sensed that too. That it wasn't happy.
Tell me a little bit more about the thoughts that were plaguing your mind every day. I know we talked a little bit about why, what trickle truths are going to come out. Were there specific thoughts that you ruminated on, or specific images or flashes that kept coming throughout the days?
My biggest thing was why, like why her? Because, he said to me, I didn't find her attractive. I didn't know anything about her. I didn't even know her last name. I didn't know. I knew she had some kids, but I didn't know anything about it. Their biggest connection was drinking. He had been increasingly drinking more and more, and she drinks a lot. So that was the connection. There was a lot of flirty texting back and forth of drinking, and now I lost my train of thought of what your question was.
Okay, what images, thoughts were plaguing your mind? So you had a lot of whys. So like trying to put these pieces together, or what pieces are missing. So the why, like would you spend a good part of the day ruminating on
why? Like your mind just kept going there. Absolutely. I mean, I would try to focus on, tasks that needed to be done. And all of a sudden it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon and I might have gotten 1 or 2 things done. And like, what was I doing all day? I was thinking about why her? Why did this happen? Trying to make sense. And again, 2 plus 2 had to equal 4 in my brain before I could move on.
Yeah, tell me about this 2 plus 2 plus 4.
That's all I would say to him over and over and over. 24 has always just been a really big number for us. We got married on the 24th. Christmas is my favorite holiday. You know, Christmas Eve is the 24th. So I just kept saying to him over and over, make 2 plus 2 equal 4. It's not right now. So that just became kind of when I would have a spiral and these ruminating thoughts that I couldn't let go of, he would be like, what can I do? What can I do? And I said, just make 2 plus 2 equals 4. Hey,
So this 2 plus 2 is not equaling 4 at this point. Let's talk about the strategies that you use to try and get 2 plus 2 to equal 4 again. Did you do couples counseling? Did you do individual therapy? Tell me a little bit about what you attempted.
we did before you got news. We did not. We did no counseling. We did no therapy. We decided to keep everything, private because we thought we could just work through this. In the one pivotal moment, I was in the office and I walked in to get a bottle of water and opened up the refrigerator and, there was beer in the refrigerator. And I took every one of the beers out and smashed them on the concrete floor. Then when he came back, I was sitting in this huge lake of beer and shards of glass everywhere. And just the smell of it was making me nauseous. And he just kind of walked in like, what is going on? And it was such a pivotal moment because my mind shifted from, am I going to survive this? To, how am I going to survive this? In that moment. And as he was sweeping up and trying to clean up the mess, I remember being so eerily calm and saying to him, this is what you've done. This is what my heart feels like, these broken shards of glass. You will never be able to put those pieces back together to make the bottles. You will never be able to put my heart back together the way it was. So we have to figure out how to put it back together and navigate forward with something new.
What a profound, you said so many like really deep things there, like putting your heart back together, this kind of eerie calm feeling like that. Let's describe that eerie calm that you had during that moment.
It was almost like an out-of-body experience because honestly, I was having such bouts of rage, screaming, yelling, throwing things, hitting him. Like disastrous rage that was uncontrollable. That felt like an out-of-body experience on one end of the spectrum to this. I was so just calm and this is the way it is and it's never going to be the same. We have to figure out this new normal. We have to figure this out.
That feeling of out of body can be a dissociation. Sometimes that happens when we are in so much pain, it's difficult to be in our body that we actually step out of our body and observe it because it's difficult to be in it. But then you had that combination of kind of presence as well. Let's move on to the how. You just said we're at a stage where you're like, we got to figure out how we're going to do this. Let's talk about the how. What did you do next?
Yeah. So by nature, I'm a go-getter. If I want something, I'm going to figure out how to get it. So in that moment, when it clicked that I don't want to get divorced, I still love this man with everything I am. He did something really, really bad, but he is still a good person. So what do I have to do to do this? So I spent hours and sleepless nights listening to podcasts. I ordered books upon books and read blogs and, read every article I could, listened to every podcast I could, just trying to figure out what tools I needed to move on. And then you came.
Yeah, I think we found each other in the Facebook group. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. See, I have a Facebook group
It's a support group for betrayed wives, and Laura popped into that, and there was where we started a dialogue. And From there, she hopped into the 12-week program, the Marriage Saver program. So tell us a little bit about that. What was your experience like with, let's say, the day-to-day support, the idea of using neuroscience and psychology? Tell me a little bit about your experience.
Well, to be honest, I was terrified at first. Being a very private person, and I never felt the need to broadcast this of what was going on, because I didn't want the extra baggage of judgment. So to open up to somebody about the details and be vulnerable like that was terrifying. But I kept saying to myself, but you have to do something to make this work, and realized that it was bigger than something that he and I could deal with on our own, that we needed some outside help. I needed some concrete tools. I can't say enough about the program. And he and I will say it often that it's what saved us. The journey, the hypno-journeys, the modules, the day-to-day ability to, oh my gosh, this is happening, and the feedback, that immediate feedback, instead of, having to wait a week to see a counselor, was really what saved our marriage.
Thanks for saying that, Laura. It's a different method, isn't it? It's kind of like a unconventional method of you get support. And some people are like, when do I meet with you? I'm like, you know what? You can talk to me whenever you want. It's just a voice message back and forth, this dialogue of Laura would leave a 1 minute, 5 minute message. At times it was wins. At times it was like, we had another argument. I'm done, or I can't do this anymore. I'm scared. I'm resentful. And it's then getting this real time feedback. You mentioned the hypno-journeys, like the hypnosis meditations. Do you want to talk a little bit about those, what some of your favorite ones were, or some of the ones that really helped you in this process? And that's, for those that aren't familiar with that term, the hypnosis kind of meditations, these hypno-journeys, what happens is Laura would get very relaxed and she would do a hypno-journey specific to whatever she was feeling, like the fear hypno-journey, jealousy, trigger, cord cutting, where you're releasing this attachment, unhealthy attachments, rut, stuck, stress. She was doing these different hypno-journeys, trust, based on what she was feeling. And it's about a half-hour process of getting very relaxed into what I call a theta brainwave state, which is just before delta. So you're not asleep, you're still fully awake. Her husband Joe could walk in the room, and I think you guys actually maybe did one. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you may have done one together. Joe could walk in and she would be fully awake. Like, it's not like you're asleep, you're not being brainwashed. It's a very empowering process of going back to some of the times of pain or hurt and really facing it and letting it go so you can close that chapter in your life so you can be more present. And what happens then is your past pain, the lack of trust, the things he's done to you aren't informing your present. So yeah, Laura, I'll let you take it over from here. Tell me about some of your thoughts around the hypno journey process.
It is an amazing process, going through it, and even more like reflecting on what actually happened. One of the biggest things was holding grudges. And I'm by nature and have always been a terrible grudge holder. You do me wrong, I'm gonna hold on to that forever. But was able to let that go. Like, it doesn't serve me, it's only hurting me. There's nothing, like, you're not punishing the person you're holding the grudge against. You're only hurting yourself. So that was a huge win there. And another one that really sticks out is the number 24. Like I've said, it was a very significant number for us. And I had a lot of anger around that the 24th had any connection to the skank. So you suggested, all right, take the number 24 through a hypno journey, and I did. And it came that the skank was holding 2 balloons, those gold helium balloons, a 2 and a 4. And I went up and I popped them, and I told her that she no longer had any significance, importance in my life, and she no longer had any connection to the number 24. And then I turned around and Joe was standing there holding 24 flowers for me. And Santa was standing there and was holding 24 chocolates for me. And I looked up and the year 2024 was written in the stars. And then the voice came in. Oh. The voice came in and said, 2 plus 2 equals 4. Problem solved.
I just got goosebumps.
Ah,
So this was all happening in one of these journeys where
yes.
That voice came in again, not in a night terror. Oh, but
you're in an empowering, beautiful way. So this voice, tell me a bit more, that profound voice that just came in. Tell me a little bit more. What happened next?
so the voice started out very like this demonic laughing. We're telling you the truth, he's not. And then it shifted through the night terrors and came out through hypno-journeys to a very reassuring, very calming, very loving voice. I believe it was his dad who passed away.
And you've since heard that voice since that last hypno journey, correct?
Yeah, we had taken a walk. We love to be outdoors, and hiking is a big thing for us. So one cloudy day, it was, a nice spring wintry day, and we both felt really pulled to take a walk along this creek, and we came to this waterfall, and there was such energy there. Not only the movement of the water, but just in the air was this energy. And I can remember just being so overcome with like a feeling of we've made it, kind of a feeling. And I just sat down, and it was pretty muddy. It was an overcast day and it was pretty muddy. And I just sat there on the edge of this creek by this waterfall and just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And I felt these arms around me, and I looked up, and Joe was probably 15 or 20 steps away from me. But I felt like somebody was behind me hugging me. And then, I heard this voice came and said, "It doesn't have to be so heavy. It's going to be okay." And again, just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And then Joe walked over and he hugged me. And this sunbeam came down on us on this cloudy day. So it was just that particular spot has become a very sacred, special place to us.
It's phenomenal, this story, the things that you're sharing. And I will mention, like with the hypno journeys, I do have clients who'll say, yes, they always almost hear their true, authentic self. Like they'll hear like this great inner parent that's like, you'll be okay. You'll be fine. You can let this go. I have had clients that have seen God come in. They have this sense of God coming in and almost holding them too. They've had parents that have passed away that have come in. It's really interesting how when we're in a certain state of mind, how we are open to bringing in energy that we can't really see. And it's just spectacular that you were able to feel that like at such a deep level and have those messages come through. At this stage, you said something really neat, like you're there. You've had this voice guide you. It's like it's time to let this go. How was Joe responding at this point? How was he feeling? Like was he still worried about more night terrors, this voice revealing more to you guys, or his dad, his late dad? Was he feeling worried at this point, or how's he in this healing process?
He, at that point, wasn't worried. And I'd have to look back through my journals to figure out the exact timeline. But prior to this experience at the creek that we now call Connection Creek, prior to that, we had a really, really dark argument about, you just need to tell me the truth. Like, I feel like you are protecting Roger and the skank. Like, why are you protecting them at the cost of me having these night terrors?
Oh, Roger, let's pause there for a second. So you just used the word Roger, but keep going. We'll talk about Roger in a second.
Okay. So you're saying you're getting upset at Joe? Joe's
You're wondering, like, why are you not telling me the truth? It feels like you're protecting the skank, the affair partner, and it feels like you're protecting Roger. Okay, carry on.
So, I kept saying, why are you protecting them at the expense of me? If you want to, make this work, and if this is what you want, then I don't feel like that is helpful to our healing. So he went on his own little walk in the woods, find his moment. and came back and said that was it. That was the last truth I'm holding back. And I struggled to believe it because he had lied so much. But then the other part of me said, you have to choose to believe it.
So what I find a lot of clients of mine do, it's like we have marriage one. And
Uh-huh.
marriage one
Yeah.
didn't work out the way we wanted to. Then there's this pivotal, horrible, unfair, really tragic, heartbreaking thing that happens, which is an emotional, physical affair. And it's like this change, this point, this catalyst. It's like, okay, are we going to make it or are we not going to make it? Am I going to trust or am I not going to trust? Am I going to succumb to the anger, the resentment, or am I going to be able to release it regardless if I stay or go? And so what happens for a lot of clients is we do this work and they're able to kind of package marriage one up, 1.0. And then there's like this D-Day happens, the discovery, and then now there's marriage 2.0 that starts to emerge after it. And so it's like they have to almost remarry their husband because their husband's new. They're different. It's like new you, new husband, new marriage. And it's this like almost cutting of the old marriage, realizing he is not who I'm married to today. And so you had a kind of your own way of navigating this. Tell me a little bit about Roger.
So I needed to disconnect Joe sitting in front of me from Joe that made those terrible decisions and those choices. So we talked about it and we decided to name that alter ego, I guess.
Yeah, I like that. Alter ego for sure. We rename. I have like husbands that get new names. So it's like,
Yeah.
As the guy that's having the affair's name is Bob.
but
Yeah.
your name is Joe, and you used Roger. Roger was this alter ego, the version of
Roger.
him that was doing all these horrible things, having those text messages, drinking the beer. Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead, carry on.
Yeah. So he just became Roger. And that helped me. At first, I struggled with it because I didn't want to name this alter ego and let him feel like he's getting off the hook. Like he could just say, well, that was Roger. Like, don't be mad at me. I didn't want him to feel like he was getting off the hook. So I struggled with naming that alter ego a little bit. But then that was shortly before you and I started working together. And that was one of the first questions, is it okay to name an alter ego? Is that letting him off the hook? And you said, absolutely not. And it really helped me separate. This was Joe that made terrible, terrible decisions and choices that he didn't have to make and hurt me beyond belief. Versus, so that's Roger. But then this is Joe that really is doing everything other than lying. And we worked through that. He cut off all ties from the get-go with the AP. He didn't want any connection with the skank or anything. So he was doing his part the best he knew how. So we now say that we did divorce our marriage 1.0. In some respects, we did get divorced because those two people prior to this affair, he and I no longer exist. He's a different person. I'm a different person. So we got remarried and we set the 24th of May as that marriage 2.0 day. Because the 24th being so significant, it was 6 months D-Day. So we had a little ceremony and really that's when we consider our marriage 2.0 anniversary.
Isn't that like, look at you, D-Day was November. We started working together in March. May, you're setting your new marriage date.
We are in September right now.
You've come so far. And I think one way that really helps people understand, like there was part of you that was like, no, I'm not letting you off the hook. I don't know if I'm going to believe you. I need to understand the why. There must be more. So sometimes if it's like you can picture yourself, Laura is like Laura, but then there's all these little yous inside. It's like all these little characters that look just like Laura, but they're little. Just like Joe has Roger inside of him, this alter ego. And there's also Joe that has the avoidance. Like he's got these little figurines. He's got the avoidant, doesn't like conflict, people pleaser, doesn't want to get in trouble. And we haven't really talked about that, but that was a lot of the reasons why he couldn't just be open and upfront.
Yes.
Because he didn't want to get in trouble. He didn't want to make you upset. He was avoidant. But same with you, Laura. You have all these little parts in you too. And we just got to talk to those little parts and be like, okay, you know what? I'm in control.
Well, I am Laura, my higher self, and I hear
Hear you all, and you just have to love them, being like, I know you want to understand. I know you want the why. I know you're not sure if you can trust. But you know what? I'm going to choose to flow, surrender. I'm going to choose my marriage today. I'm going to choose to trust today. And I'm going to hold all your hands, but I'm in charge. Feel free to
Yeah.
talk to me when you're feeling a little worried, and we'll deal with that. We'll do a hypno journey. Go for a walk. We'll do a meditation. We'll do some journaling. We'll talk it out with a friend or your coach or your therapist. We have strategies in place, and we can talk a little bit about that in a second. But it's okay to have those little voices. I think sometimes we think we're going to be completely cured of this. And you said one thing to
No.
me as we were starting. You're like, not everything's perfect.
no, things are really good. Like you're at a place where you can say,
I'm grateful for my husband's affair. You needed this, what you call perfect storm. But let's
Yeah.
go into that. Like, I don't want to paint this like incredible picture. Like things are amazing. You just got remarried in May. But you know what? Things are still not perfect. Let's go there for a second.
yeah, things aren't perfect. You know, we have amazing days, and I would say on the whole, life is amazing right now, but the reality of it is I still get triggery. I still have questions pop into my head. I still get upset and angry. He still, is avoidant of some things, but the difference being now versus pre-affair is we now have the base, the foundation to talk through those things and set some boundaries and respect each other's points of view and listen. I don't think before either one of us were really listening. We were hearing each other, but we weren't listening. And I think that's been a big change. So now we're able to do that when we have an argument. But yeah, it's not all sunshine and rainbows 24/7. And you know that?
Difference is you have a different skill set and you can move through that stuff instead of ruminating all day. It's 5 o'clock and you're like, what did I get done? You're now able to be productive and those things come in, you know how to address them without them overtaking your life.
Yes. And another tool that has been very helpful is, if something comes up and he's had questions too, it's not always me, spewing out whys or triggers or anything. We will say, something has come up. Can we talk about it after dinner tonight? Whereas before I would need an immediate response. Like I would call him in the middle of the day. ABC just came into my head. Why did you do that? What does that mean? Kind of thing. But now we can take a step back and just say, this thought came into my head today. Can we talk about it after dinner?
And how is he about that? Does he still feel nervous? Does he feel like avoidant or is he better? Like, have you helped?
He's the part about. He's so much better. I will say, so we celebrated 35 years in June. And I will say we have the best communication that we've ever had. In 35 years, he's more receptive to opening up and understanding where some of his reservations and some of his reasons of how he interacts happen. Yeah, a lot of times it's because he's afraid to get in trouble. We have had discussions of how that traces back to his childhood.
Amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you are the catalyst for change? You saved your marriage. You really did.
I did, but I didn't do it alone.
No, but you let it.
Yes.
You worked on yourself to heal a lot of that anger, that resentment, that version of you that had this rage that you didn't know existed.
Mm-hmm.
You worked on that, and by softening, he was then able to be safe to open up because he was so scared of making you upset, of getting in trouble. And you softened enough that allowed him to open up and feel safe.
Yeah. Yeah. That was you. You did
that. Let's talk about this. When we first started, you and I, you weren't sure if you wanted to fully forgive him because if you fully forgave him, he'd be off the hook. So
Yeah.
where are we at now? Have you forgiven him?
I have forgiven him for the choices he made. I will never forget. And that's kind of the statement, when we talk about, where we were, what we've experienced and where we are now. I fully forgive the choices he made because I can see I'm not taking any responsibility for the choices he made because he could have made one of 1,000 different choices than cheating. But I can see where the opportunity and where the fractures were in our marriage that it happened. And I can forgive him for that. I will never forget. It will always be, this chapter will always be part of our story. I can't erase it.
Yeah, and I think that's really empowering that you say that. We can't forgive. I mean, sorry, we can forgive. Absolutely sorry. We can forgive. And I should say really quick, forgiveness comes with first acceptance that this has happened, like full acceptance. Doesn't mean it's okay, doesn't mean right, but I accept this happened and this is part of my story. For there, we can then forgive. Once we forgive, it's like, whew, the weight is all lifted off because you can then officially let go. But that acceptance has to happen first to forgive. But the forget is what I meant to say. We can't forget. It is part of our story. Our subconscious remembers all. It's all there, filed away. And whether you've pushed it so far back that you don't want to bring it up, and that's what happens with a lot of men, especially reasons why they have affairs, because they push stuff back.
Back and eventually it just comes up. Like, he's had this avoidant
Tendencies for so long, and there's reasons why he was seeking outside validation and connection. But yeah, it's always there. So I must say, like, we're never going to forget, but it almost becomes somewhat of it's a memory, but it's not something that's playing out every single day, dictating your mood and how you feel and how you act anymore.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a great way to put it. It's not dictating our life right now. It's there, but it's not in the forefront.
Can you trust him now? Scale of 1 to 10. How much do you trust him?
9.9. Ooh, that's good.
9.9. Do you feel like there's more truths to come out? Like, or do you feel like, you know what, I'm good? And if where are you at with that?
I don't feel like there's any more truths to come out about the affair. I did have another experience with the voice the second time we went to that creek area. And then we drove and sat in the gravel parking lot that he made a phone call in. He was extremely uncomfortable, but at the creek, and I shared it with him while we were sitting in the gravel parking lot, at the creek, the voice came to me and said, he would not have slept with her. I wouldn't have left it. I can fully believe that I know everything that there is to know. Do I know every single little minute detail? No, because he doesn't remember, nor would I expect him to remember every word of every conversation they ever had. I think that's unrealistic.
Good point, actually. I like that you said that because I think about just like generally good messages that I send friends or family about work. I'm like, I don't even remember all the details. So then this expectation that they should remember everything, there's a point to that, right? Whether we can let that go, be like, okay, do I need to know all the details? Often when we close our eyes and ask ourselves, do I need to know every detail? A lot of times the message will be, no, you don't.
Yeah, know it all. It just leads
to more and more healing, deeper healing that needs to be done. Instead of just seeing that your husband's starting to make changes, he's
to try and riding with that. Yeah. So as far as the affair, that is good. I think it's now the work on healing some of his traumas or issues that he has carried his whole life. I think that's where we're at that point.
What's he going to do with that? How is he going to, what's his plan?
I'm not sure that he even has a plan right now. I think because it's only in the last couple weeks that it really has, not that it's come to light, but he's had that aha moment of, I don't always, he has such a knee-jerk reaction to answering a question or a situation that he's afraid he's going to get in trouble about, or somebody's going to have a negative reaction to, that he doesn't tell the truth. And I think he had that aha moment just recently, so he's not sure where he's taking that.
But recognizes that it's an issue and it,
Something has to be done. But yeah, and that's step
one, that recognition that he's having, that awareness. And so he may stay in that behavior for a while, but the moment that he catches it, at least outing himself, being like, okay, Laura, I can see how I did this. I feel a bit guilty that I did this, but I'm seeing the patterns. That's step one of like breaking that neural pathway that has that limiting belief of we need to protect ourselves so we don't get in trouble because that feels really yucky. So changing that neural pathway is having awareness that that exists and then correcting it as quick as we can to be like, okay, this is what I should say. This is really hard for me to say. This is what I need to say to start creating that new neural pathway. Or hopping into some hypno-journeys too. That one cleans it up pretty fast as well.
Yeah. Laura, let's see. What else do you want to share?
Is there anything from your story that I didn't touch on that you want to share? Or there's any advice for anyone that's going through what you're going through, what you've been through that you'd like to share?
I think just there is positive that can come out of something so horrible. Just keep believing that. Like, life, one of my mantras being that, the life in front of you is so much more important than the life behind you. And yeah, being cheated
on, it sucks. It hurts. It's the worst. I honestly wouldn't wish it upon even the skank because it's so hurtful and devastating when you're blindsided, but it doesn't mean that has to define you.
Yeah, like when you and I were brainstorming really briefly, like what we might call this training here, you said like my husband had an affair and I'm glad he did.
These are wild, like for so many people that are
out there, but that quote that you just said, right? Like the life ahead of us is so much more important than what's behind us. Like you can see how there's gratitude. Like every single day we should be waking up being like, I'm thankful for the sun. I'm thankful for my kids. I'm thankful that I can breathe. And you're thankful for this, like you said, this perfect storm that was one of the most painful things you've ever experienced in your life, but you can see all the good that's come from it.
Yeah, because I truly don't think, and he and I have had the conversation, I don't think we would be at marriage 2.0 and finding each other and being best friends and intimacy back and exciting and looking forward to spending time with each other. And, in the beginning, yeah, I'll admit it was hysterical bonding, but now it's comfortable. Now it's, I'm excited to see him at the end of a workday. And I don't think any of that would have been possible. It would have been a lot longer road, and I'm not sure we would have ever had the wake-up call had he not made the choices he made.
So I never in a million years,
I was always the one in a conversation that if my husband cheated on me, forget it, there's the door, I never want to see you again. And that happened to me, and no way. No, a lot of soul searching. That's so black and white, and dealing with an affair is so gray. Yeah.
That is so well said. That is you and every other client I work with. It's like, I told myself if he ever cheated on me, I'd be done. But then all of a sudden, 34 years into a marriage, you're like, what do I do? Like one part of my body is being like, or my mind is saying, go, go, go. He did this to you. But the other part's like, but I do love him. He's my best friend. I can see how he acts this way and I've acted this way. We have these beautiful children together, this life. We have retirement coming soon. We have all these plans. Is there a way for me to move past this? And that's a whole healing process in itself, is talking to that voice within you that's always said, go.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I never in a million years, if you asked me in November, December, would I have ever said I even had one speck of gratefulness for it? But now I have all the gratefulness in the world for it.
Well, Laura, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you being so brave and courageous to share your story, because this isn't an easy thing to do, to have to rehash some of these details. So thank you so much for joining me today and inspiring. Like you said, if I could help one person out there.
It makes this all worthwhile. Absolutely. All right. Thanks for joining me, Laura. Thank you. Have a great day. You too. Bye. Bye now.